As the White House is trying to deal with this crisis in Iran, over in Congress, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is trying to limit President Trump's ability to respond to the situation. That effort will come in the form of a war powers resolution. The House is expected to vote on that today. Speaker Pelosi said she wants to force the president to consult with Congress before he takes any further major military action.
And for more, let's turn to constitutional attorney Seth Berenzweig. In light of last night's event, Seth, do you think that Nancy Pelosi has less momentum for pushing this resolution?
Probably. Ms. Pelosi in the House and Senator Kaine in the Senate have been discussing trying to move forward with some kind of limiting resolution. But we're really sitting at a moment of calm right now. Of course, the president's words in a few minutes will feed directly into the context. But at this point, I think we all take a step back and look at the context and can recognize here in Washington that the president has been walking a tough tightrope over the last couple of days, and he's done a pretty good job. Militarily, he struck against a known terrorist and someone who had a lot of American blood on his hands. There were the attacks last night by Iran, but it was essentially missiles being thrown into the desert with some chest beating. So we seem to have a cessation of hostilities at the moment. Legally, constitutionally, I think the president was on sound footing. Under Article 2 of the Constitution, as the commander-in-chief, he had the authority to launch a preemptive defensive attack of limited duration. He did that. There has been some debate in Washington as to whether there has to be affirmative evidence of imminency. I think that while evidence of whether there would be an imminent attack would be relevant, I don't think it's crucial. This was a person who we knew aimed to harm the United States. The attack was successful. We got through last night with 0 casualties. We'll see what the president says, but I think he was on sound legal footing.
Well, Seth, give us a feel for what the parameters are going forward that Congress would have a role in, because this question, as far as the executive's power militarily, goes back to Korea. So this has always been an argument. So what should we look for? Everything happens faster now, so it's not like it's going to take 90 days to make decisions.
That's exactly right. And I think that what we're now going to be doing is looking through the prism of the War Powers Act, which was enacted by Congress during the Nixon administration in 1973, that sought to strike some kind of a balance between the president's authority to be able to execute certain decisions as the commander-in-chief and Congress's authority under Article 1 to declare war. And there was a balancing act under the statute that basically required the president to notify Congress as to any kind of an action that would be taking place in an arena of active military ongoing hostilities. The question and the debate in Washington this week is going to be whether we're at that point. I would suggest that if we are at a standpoint right now where we have a moment of relative calm, it's going to be very difficult for the Congress to step in and say either through the War Powers Act or in a related resolution that they can really take any kind of a definitive action against the president, because his action was very limited. And in fact, if you take a step back and you look at it in the context of relevant history, just a couple of years ago, the Obama administration took an action against Osama bin Laden. Then you could argue that that preemptive action, without immediate evidence of an imminent additional attack, was done with boots on the ground, helicopters that went into another nation's airspace. This was a more limited drone attack against a known designated terrorist. So Congress is going to be looking at this carefully here in Washington this week, but I think from the congressional standpoint, it will be an uphill battle.
What about the effort that Nancy Pelosi has now to hold on to those articles of impeachment? Switching to that real quickly, you're a constitutional expert. We've never seen this before. Can you shed some light on what's going on?
Sure. I think that we are in a unique moment of American political and legal history. The Speaker has stated that she's going to hold on to the articles and not send them over until the Senate is defining what kind of a trial there is. On the one hand, Ms. Pelosi really doesn't have any control over the Senate. On the other hand, I think that she has at least a reasonable argument that the Constitution requires the Senate to actually conduct a trial, and that it's always been throughout the course course of American jurisprudence, including in the history of impeachments, that the Senate has a trial with witnesses. And a number of the witnesses, such as Mr. Bolton, have not yet provided testimony on the record. So this is going to be a very sharp political and legal tug of war. I think that she has an argument legally, but when it comes to the bottom line with respect to the power in the Senate, Mitch McConnell holds all the cards.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in about 15 seconds, can't he proceed regardless of her turning them over?
No, he cannot proceed with regard to the next steps until the articles are transferred over into that chamber. So the next few days are going to be very critical developments here in Washington.
All right. Very interesting stuff. Thank you so much, Seth Berenzweig. Thank you for joining us, sir.